Reboots, a concept that sounds fantastic on paper. You take an old property, like a movie, show, or game, and either remake or reimagine it for a modern era. And usually this garners many amount of responses that can be boiled down to a good old-fashioned,
"Oh God, what have you done?"
Yeah, continuations and reboots on beloved old series are very risky to make, especially if the series hasn't seen any new content in years or ended without an actual ending. And sometimes, it's both. That doesn't mean there aren't some standout shows, like, say, for the She-Ra remake. Even if the internet is extremely divided on that fact. And I never actually sat down to watch it. But I hear it's good. Then there's the 2017 DuckTales reboot. That show had no reason to be as great as it actually was. Holy shit, that was fantastic. But sadly, a lot of these reboots rarely hit the mark, where, yeah, they could be good, but they don't have the same magic as they once did many years ago, and can leave many fans feeling unsatisfied. But then there are those reboots that really miss the mark. Stuff like Teen Titans Go and the Powerpuff Girls reboot, which are regarded as the worst reimagining of any franchises to ever be made, that only exists to piss off everyone who loved the original. And what the fuck is happening right here? Are they twerking? These girls are like 10, right?
But you know, contrary to popular belief, these are not the worst reboots ever made. Or at least at the level that everyone likes to say they are. Because there's one that is even worse than these two.
Okay, so the way I phrased that sounded very clickbaity, so just hear me out. Yes, these shows are absolutely terrible, but at least they still have the characters and somewhat the core idea of what the show is about. That being superheroes doing sort of superhero stuff? What if I tell you there was a reboot that wasn't just bad, but actively scraps away every single bit of identity that the original source material was, and instead copies shows that are radically different from the original? And the show is literally called Reboot.
Today we're going to be looking at Reboot the Guardian Code, and how it hurts me spiritually. Now, my main intention of these Trashfire videos are mainly to look at things in more curiosity and awe rather than spiteful anger. Not this one. This is the exception. Get ready for a fucking Trashfire.
To start, let's talk about the original series. Reboot was created by the company known as Mainframe Studios, which later went on to be Rainmaker Studios, then back to Mainframe Studios. It was created in 1994 and is regarded as the first ever CGI animated TV show to ever be made. However, personally, I did not even know this show existed until many years later, once the series had ended, and only got around to watching the entire thing in 2018. And because of that, I got to see, well, some of its age. The graphical design was pretty dated, some of the jokes were pretty damn cheesy, and it kicked ass! Like, for real. The series takes place inside the computer city, known simply as Mainframe, and follows the adventures of its guardian named Bob. And fun fact, he's actually named after a Black Adder reference.
Bob. Yes. Well, Bob, welcome on board.
He and his companions, Enzo and Dot Matrix, work to keep the computer system of Mainframe safe from threats, such as the delightfully evil Megabyte in his sultry voice.
Leaving so soon? How rude.
Oh, yeah. His sister, Hexadecimal, who most likely awoke something in a bunch of children, I mean, woof. And of course, let's not forget his most dreaded enemy of all, video games. In the show, at random times, there's these giant cubes that come out of the sky, and anyone who's unfortunate to not get away is then trapped into this type of video game where they must take on the person playing it, who they refer to as the user. And if they lose to the user, then an entire section of Mainframe is destroyed, and anyone who was trapped in the games is then turned into these lifeless worm creatures with no way to revert them back.
And they say video games aren't violent.
And man, the games themselves were really cool. Most of the time, they took reference from different types of video games, like an RPG, a shooter, you name it. But then you get those games that are just homages to movies and other TV shows. There were references to Evil Dead, Austin Powers, The Prisoner. Did they honestly think that children would get a reference to a 1960s TV show? This show was great, and and season 3, that's when it hit its peak and never stopped till the end of the series. That season was just so good. And I'm serious, without spoiling anything, season 3 helped turn the annoying kid character into one of, if not the best character in the entire show. Matrix was so cool! The show ended in 2001 with 2 TV movies and a third being planned, but ultimately it never happened, leaving the entire show hanging on a cliffhanger. And to explain what happens after that, I highly recommend you check out this video done by WoolieVs. This guy goes through the entire history of Reboot and the 20 years it took from this series to go from this to this. I'll have the link down below so you can watch the video yourself, and, also give Woolie some love while you're at it. The dude makes some great quality gaming content, especially if you're into fighting games. But now we can finally watch Reboot the Guardian Code and see if, oh no. Are those live action teenagers?
This is gonna be a good time.
The series takes place in Alan Turing High as we follow our main characters. First, there's Austin, the obvious leader of the group, who has all the leadership traits like having a dead dad. And nothing else. Then there's Tamara, the social media sensation who likely sells her bathwater to weirdos on the internet. Parker, the token nerd who desperately wants to fuck a robot. And Trey. He plays basketball.
Oh, don't worry about not remembering their names. You'll just remember them as the archetypes they're supposed to be. I should know, because I forgot their names. I had to look them up, and I watched most of this. Oh.
Now, these 4 have never met and are completely different from one another, but they all have one thing in common. They're all teenagers with attitude. I mean, they all play the same game, which is actually a secret recruitment tool for a secret project. And it's located underneath the same school they go to. And they're all on the same team in the game even though they never met. Well, this is a mighty fine set of conveniences you got there. It's almost like someone had 7 ideas and went, I have an idea. Let's use all of them. All of them?
Do not question me!
So all 4 kids get a mysterious text message that says they are required to head to Room 0. It is here where they find the Guardian base, where their game avatars are shown above these obvious Star Trek telepads. And after the most contrived introduction to each other, the group steps onto the telepad and are then transported into cyberspace. It is there they are greeted by Vera, a powerful AI with a personality that can best be described as...
Greetings, human. I too wish to be human. Please tell me about the thing you call the sex.
Seriously? The background characters in the original had more personality than this character. Jesus Christ. Anyway, she tells the kids they are the next generation of Guardians due to the fact they have the highest score in the game, and now must help by using their skills against the evils that lurk in the net. Now, small question, easy to answer, not even that complicated. How are these kids qualified to do this? The only qualification they have is that they have the highest score in a video game. That is it. None of these kids have actual combat training, so what makes her think that these kids can actually fight all of this? This is almost like the plot of The Last Starfighter, but the difference is that the recruitment game in that was made to model the look and feel of a starship. So when the main character gets teleported into the war, he would at least have a smidge of experience. But here, they just play on controllers and are like...
Huh. I guess I know Capoeira now. Epic.
So now the Guardians are formed and must do what they can to protect the net from the evil clutches. No, this cannot be the main villain. I refuse that notion. So this guy is the most notorious hacker in the series who wants to destroy all of humanity using dark code. Who wrote this show? Oh, and just guess what he calls himself. Just go on, guess. You'd likely get it. They call him the Sorcerer. Okay. One, this guy is obviously Leader Guy's dead dad. You may say that's a spoiler, but trust me, this show is way too predictable that I guarantee you would have guessed it by the first episode. And secondly, the Sorcerer. Really? You couldn't think of a better name, could you? What, was Hacker Man too much on the nose? Hell, I can make a better name for this dude, just watch. Okay, to start, he wears all black, and he wants to destroy the world. Standard Hacker Man stuff, nothing really coming at me right now. He looks like he has never felt the touch of another human being, that could be helpful. He talks like he's trying to be taken seriously on Reddit.
Oh, my plan is in motion. It can't be stopped. I won't be stopped.
And he has moments where he just throws complete temper tantrums. I got it!
Incel!
So the Guardians must stop Incel before he does any more damage, like, I don't know, destroy Twitter? I mean, I'm not against that idea, not gonna lie. And to make matters worse, Incel used his almighty hacking powers in order to revive Megabyte!
Yes!
That's right, baby, Megabyte is back! And he's forced to do the bidding of Incel.
What the fuck?
Okay, if there is one thing I can say nice about this entire series, it's that they got Megabyte right. This guy still has the same levels of flair and charisma like he did back in the original. And high props to Timothy E. Drummond. He does a fantastic interpretation of the late Tony J's Megabyte. And since we're continuing to praise this dude, his new design? Yeah, it ain't that bad. Sure, it gives him some big old Mishima eyebrows, and I do prefer the older model. But it helps give off the vibe of being malicious, yet elegant. Which is basically Megabyte. All in all, I'm just trying to say is that Megabyte is the best character in this entire heap, and every time he graces us with his appearance, he makes this show somewhat bearable. And then I remember they made him a jobber to a fucking incel. This show can go to hell! Hey, remember a few seconds ago when I praised the voice actor for Megabyte? I can't say the same thing for the rest of the cast. Besides Incel sounding like he's the baddest motherfucker in the Roblox community, the rest of the cast doesn't sound like they're even trying half the time, and it leaves everyone sounding bored just being there. Seriously, you can make it a drinking game for every time they seem like they delivered their line while looking at their phone.
We should check that out.
What, like now?
Yes, we're Guardians. It's what my dad wanted us to do.
These stabilizers are awesome. I don't feel sick at all. Whoa.
You want to go to school instead of fighting Megabyte?
Spill it, Defrag. You've been acting weird all morning.
Wow, I can't believe I'm missing the overacting of Power Rangers. You're putting me to sleep! And really, you can kinda guess what this show is going to be. The Guardians have some sort of wacky shenanigans, Incel attacks the web, Megabyte continues to steal the show, then the Guardians go into cyberspace, save the day, and something overarching plot. I really didn't care. None of these episodes really held my attention, especially when Megabyte's off screen, because, you know, he's the only thing keeping me entertained in this entire slog. It's just boring. There's nothing really interesting about any of these episodes. Well, that's not entirely true. There is one episode to talk about. That being episode 10, Mainframe Mayhem. The premise of this episode is that the team finds an old computer terminal, and after turning on the machine, they discover that it's home to Mainframe, as in from the original series. There, they get to meet the original cast, Bob, Dot, and Enzo, as they team up against Megabyte, who has also returned to Mainframe in order to recruit his own sister, Hexadecimal. I mean, this episode has a lot of callbacks, references, and even brings back the characters we love. By all accounts, this should be the best episode yet. Well, to start, the fuck is continuity, am I right? Hexadecimal is dead. Dead as a doornail. She sacrificed herself to save the net, and now she's back? With no explanation? Nothing at all? Okay. It's like if they brought back Palpatine in the new Star Wars without giving any explanation. Oh shit, that is a terrible analogy. Also, where is everyone? Mainframe feels very barren right now. Where are the binomes? Where are the wacky characters? Where's the one that looks like Sailor Moon? And yeah, there is Bob, Dot, Enzo, and Frisket, but where's Fong? Mouse, Mike the TV, Hack and Slash, Andrea, but most importantly, where the fuck is Matrix? Now, maybe this might take place around Season 1 and Season 2, but we'll see. That is not the case. What is going on? But Davy, says the strong man, why are you so held up on canon when this is supposed to be a tribute episode? First off, why do you sound like that? And second, that is a semi-fair point. Let's continue how this gets worse. While watching this episode, I tend to notice that everyone from the original was acting way out of character. For example, let's start with the first time the Guardians meet Bob. He literally quotes the entire intro of the original series in the most hand-fisted way possible. And then after the team admits they are the users, aka the closest thing to gods in the original, Bob just goes,
I knew it!
And never questions these guys any further than that. Because of course he doesn't. It's not like understanding the user was his biggest goal in the original. How silly am I? Almost as silly as Bob, letting the Guardians take on Megabyte and Hexadecimal on their own, with no concern that the two most dangerous viruses that he knows are up to something that could jeopardize the world. It's fine! It's like that one famous Batman moment where he went, well, even though the Joker is on the loose planning something, I trust the Wonder Twins can handle this. I'll just sit back and drink margaritas, cause it's me day now. Hell, the other characters have it worse. Dot does nothing but spout exposition, and Enzo just says different catchphrases left and right. I am astonished that you could make the Moppet even more annoying. How do you do that? Oh, but that's not the worst part of this whole episode. Because in this episode, we actually get to see the user. The faceless being from the original who was responsible for inputting games into the series is finally revealed. And here he is, a middle-aged man who lives with his mom and is obsessed with Reboot? What? Well, one, this confirms that this is after the entire series, so all this bullshit doesn't make sense. But does that mean the show is real in your universe, or what? How does this guy have all of this? This just raises further questions. What the fuck?
Ah yes, I love when crappy jokes completely destroy the world building of your show. It's my favorite!
Also, is this what you think of your fans, Mainframe Studios? The ones who try to keep your show relevant? The ones that have hoped for continuation for almost 20 years, only to be greeted by this? Is this how you see the people who loved your franchise? Fat? Annoying? Probably smells? Living in their parents' basement? Is this what you think of them? Cause if so, then fuck you too, buddy. This episode was supposed to be a nice little tribute to the old show, but the way it was presented felt like a mighty dick flick to anyone who cared about Reboot. And what's worse is that this episode doesn't matter at all in the entirety of the show. Mainframe is never brought up again. Bob and the others don't join in to help at all. The only thing of notice is that Hexadecimal is still around. But then she's beaten in the next episode and practically out of commission for the rest of the series, making this entire reason to go to Mainframe entirely pointless. And remember that word, kiddies, because we're gonna be hearing it again real soon. Oh boy. But for now, I want to talk about a different show called MP Force. Yes, that's the name of the show. Yes, this has a point. The show's premise is about 4 teenagers who own the high score in a video game, getting recruited by a digital AI to save virtual reality from the clutches of an evil AI and his edgelord human. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds terrifyingly similar to the Guardian Code. Well, maybe the reason is because the creator of MP Force, Michael Hefferon, went on to become the CEO of Mainframe Entertainment and is an executive producer of the Guardian Code. So what this tells me is that the current CEO of Mainframe Entertainment wanted to get his bland teen hero show remade, and to do that, he had to use a well-beloved franchise, stripped everything that made it good, and replaced it with this. Why? That's like making a sequel to the original Blade Runner, but instead of keeping anything that resembles Blade Runner, they decide to scrap all that nonsense and make a spiritual successor to Nuki! Oh god, I'm gonna have to talk about Nuki one of these days, aren't I?
It will take extraterrestrial spirit and courage, along with the help of 2 native brothers, to reunite these space travelers.
And even if that wasn't the case, it still can't be denied that this series is nothing you haven't seen before in better shows. Hell, the internet had a field day comparing it to Code Lyoko, and they're not wrong. In fact, there was an episode in the Guardian Code that had somewhat of a similar plot to an episode of Code Lyoko, that being about an AI controlling a vehicle. But in the Guardian Code, all it did was turn up the music, honk the horn, and make the car abruptly stop. While in Code Lyoko, the AI was gonna crash a bus full of children into a fucking nuclear plant that would nuke the entire city! Which therein lies the biggest problem. The Guardian Code does nothing new with this teen hero concept and plays it relatively safe for the entire time. But Davy, says the returning strawman, the show was made for kids. What do you expect? Well, strawman, so was the original reboot. And all of these! This one even killed off its main characters in the end. Being made for kids is no longer an excuse, even back in 2018. So, what does this show have to offer? Nothing. The show doesn't do anything new, nor is it compelling or entertaining. I actually stopped watching after they captured Megabyte 2 episodes away from the finale because, let's be honest, he was the only saving grace of this show. The Guardian Code uses the Reboot name to leverage itself and nothing else. It's generic, derivative, and you can get the same amount of entertainment from YouTube Kids videos. And those don't insult their fan base at the same time. They just insult your will to live.
What the fuck?
All I can say in the end is that this show was pointless at best, and a trash fire at worst. Don't waste your time watching this.
Reboot is a fantastic series with great characters, story, action, and is an important staple in 3D animation. A lot of TV shows wouldn't even be a thing without Reboot. And it deserved better.
Even after 20 years, it's still enjoyable. And this is coming from a generation that thinks it's funny to spout weird gibberish like
Poggers! I don't even know what that means!
So of course, I highly recommend you check it out. If you can look past the dated graphics, you would find an uncut gem that stood the test of time. And who knows, maybe we might get that last film to wrap up the show. Or even an actual revival. I mean, weirder things have happened. Would it be as good as the original? Probably not. But it would probably be better than
Guardian
this.
Sight, Sorcerer, and Megabyte so you fools can sleep. Tight at night.
Well, that was depressing. And if you have any other shows or movies that can continue my perpetual suffering, let me know down in the comments below. Because I'm a glutton for this type of punishment. That being said, I'm DavKav. That was a Trashfire. And I need to lay down. This was a hard one to get through. No skits. No laughs. I'm done.